everyone for being here. Thank you, Swami Sarvapriyananda. Thank you, Raja, for this wonderful film. I wanted to start off on a bit of a note of personal impact. I grew up in India, like I'm sure several people in our audience have as well. And I remember, my elementary school classes on Swami Vivekananda. And I remember, learning about him as part of the anti-colonial movement, on Indian nationalism, his representation of India abroad, as an orator. So I remember wearing, a turban that was too big for my head and saying, "Arise, awake." I'm sure Samrat did it much better in the film. But the film was interesting to me because of the global impact, that you cover and his impact on American society. And so I wanted to ask you, Raja, what inspired you to make the film, tell this chapter of his story, talk about him as, America's first guru.
Good evening. It's lovely to be here. And thank you, dear. And thank you, Rachel, for that great introduction. And thank you, Mukesh. I think that I'm Bengali, first of all.
All three of us.
So we kind of live and breathe Swamiji, But I didn't grow up in India. I grew up in Africa, in Nigeria and Sierra Leone. And we had a little puja ghar in our house, a little prayer room. And Ramakrishna was in the middle with Makali and Sharada Devi, and then Swami Vivekananda on the side. So you get it in your DNA, put into you. But when I went to university and all, I kind of left all that behind. I kind of became agnostic. But when I came to New York in 1998, I kind of got drawn back to the teachings, and I went and met a wonderful Swami called Swami Sarvapriyananda. No, it wasn't you. It was called Swami Adishwarananda. And Swami Adishwarananda was on the Upper East Side in the 90s. And I started going to classes on Tuesdays and Fridays with him. And I was already doing media and digital media. And then I looked around, and nobody knew the story of Swami Vivekananda in America. Nobody. Only Indians. And even Indians only knew Arise, Awake, and Sisters and Brothers of America.
Case in point.
In fact, most Indians thought that he came, gave the speech, and went back. But he stayed here for 6 years almost. And he built a society. He took know-how back. He empowered women. He worked in diversity. So when I started looking at this story, I pitched it 10 years ago, no money, to PBS. Then I came back. I went to India for a while. I came back 3 years ago. And I said, I have to make it now. So I went to PBS, WTTW Chicago, and they agreed to present it. And that was the beginning. We raised the money. And so thank you to Sunita for letting me come back to India, to America. Thank you. And for introducing us to this event. Thank you. And that's how it started. And it was really a lifelong act, because my father went to Scottish Church College. So we were connected. Our house in Calcutta was literally 5 blocks from Swamiji's house. So for me, it was a natural thing to do. Thank you. Thank you for
Wonderful,
asking.
wonderful story. I think, interestingly, we noted that all three of us were from Bengal initially. Like Raja, I grew
You're
up
the honorary Gujarati.
I grew up in the American Midwest, though. So what a wonderful experience. I do want to suggest that everyone see the movie and be thankful to PBS for what they've done, and they're streaming it now. Swami Sarvapriyananda, I want to take it into a different direction in terms of 1893, Swami Vivekananda says, the bell has tolled, all bad things should come to an end, to paraphrase. The world is a mess. It's never been quite this bad, I'd say, right? When you have religious leaders all over the world talking about the heathens and still going, is there still a place to arise awake? Can humans arise awake? And is there still an ability to say that all religions should not only be tolerated, but appreciated as true?
Well, thank you for that question. I think it's really a question of how relevant Vivekananda's message is today. And in a certain sense, unfortunately, it's more relevant than ever. And especially here, we're sitting in New York. This is 9/11 means something. I mean, I wasn't there when it happened here, but everybody who was there at that time, they remember that day, 9/11, who was here in New York on that day. So Swami Vivekananda's speech was also 9/11. I think one 9/11 in the past holds the solution to this 9/11. That's the relevance. Religion, in Vivekananda's words, has often been, very unfortunately, the source of violence, division, hatred, kind of amplifying our tribal instincts in the worst possible way. But religion also has the solution. And that's the solution which Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, they stood for, that there is a common, highest common message in all of these religions, which needs to be stressed, so that we can all live in harmony. Not a harmony of disbelief in everything. I don't believe in anything, so it's fine whatever you do. That's one kind of harmony. Or the harmony of uniformity. I dream of converting everyone to my faith, which will never happen. But a harmony of difference. And that's what Vivekananda talked about.
May it be true.
I think that for Swami Vivekananda, one of the reasons why I loved making this film was that if you read him today, the language is so modern and so contemporary. There's no Tao and Victorian speak or anything like that in it. So one could go to any essay or speech by Swami Vivekananda and imagine that you're talking about today. And I think that's the beauty of Swami Vivekananda. And we try to show that in the film. That's why we put him in New York today rather than back then. And I think the other thing we found was that the things he was talking about, we haven't really progressed that far. Pluralism, forget universalism. That's too high an ideal. Even just pluralism, accept it. He says, I don't want us to tolerate. I want us to have universal acceptance. That means that you and I are divine. And we all have the same divine spark. I think that message, and then diversity, women, the way he worked with all that was amazing.
Those
Yeah.
are amazing points.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I think part of what made it, what made his work appealing and was why it was taught in schools to youth is that the simplicity of that language and that message, with the depth that it conveys. And on the topic of inclusion, I did notice a couple times in the film, his 3 angels in America were all women. He had a very consciously sort of inclusive attitude towards women. And I was curious to know your thoughts also, Swamiji. What do you think it was about his philosophy and Vedanta that appeals to women?
You have caught on to something very important in his philosophy. Vedanta sees the same divinity in all beings. But this, the stress on inclusion, women, people of all castes in India, all races here in America, this was uniquely Swami Vivekananda's message, building on his Vedantic base. In India, he went back and said that the 2 great national sins of India were the neglect of the women and the oppression of the masses. And this is part of his message. Notice, often people say he said brothers and sisters of America. Actually, he didn't. He said sisters and brothers of America. And that was... and he did that deliberately throughout his life. One of the big issues in those days in India, when he went back to India, was whether widows should be allowed to remarry or not. And there was this orthodox section of society which said, no, it's a sin. And there was this reformist section, he said, yes, they should be allowed to remarry. And when they asked him, and this was unique about Vivekananda, what do you think, where do you stand on the widow remarriage issue? He said, am I a widow? Why are you asking me? People were taken aback. Either you are for it or against it. And then he gives an answer which is startling, which didn't seem obvious at that time. He says, no, what I want is girls should be given the same education and the freedom as the boys, and they should decide. So that's amazing. That's something, all the solutions were coming from men. Some men were saying that they shouldn't be allowed to remarry. Some men were saying they should be allowed to remarry. Nobody asked the women. If you did ask the woman would have said, first of all, I'll decide. Right? So this is what Vivekananda saw, both here and there. Here also, he acknowledged his tremendous debt to women in America. women in general, you would have noticed those women we talked about in the film, they were, Vivekananda notes that the men are busy earning dollars. And it's the women who uphold culture. They read, they support art, they support religion. So it was not really all that surprising. There was many of them who came to listen to him had already read about Hinduism, about philosophy, but they took to this very fresh presentation of religion and philosophy which Vivekananda represented.
One thing that we see in the story, and when you watch the film you'll see this, is that women played a vital role in building the infrastructure here in America. That's why we talk about the three angels, but there were many, many more. And the same thing happened when they went to India. It was, Sister Nivedita helped build the schools and empowered women, and she was as much of a political activist as Annie Besant was later, and people don't even know this story about Sister Nivedita. So there was this tremendous, what he said was that women of America, the reason we should educate women in India is that the women of America run civic society. And without educating women, you cannot run civic society, And today, that's the biggest dilemma we face, is how do we run civic society? How do we teach people to tolerate each other, accept each other? How do we do that? And he said women is the only way they can do that, And here he was very emphatic about it. They were the first order to initiate nuns in Hinduism. We don't see that very much, We see it in some schools of Tantra and other things, but not like this, So yes, he was very much about that,
So very much ahead of his time. And the amazing thing in the movie is without giving the whole plot away, is you draw a direct line from Vivekananda, 1893, early 1900s, to William James, which you showed here. You draw it all the way up to the Beatles and to George Lucas, Nikola Tesla. Could you comment on that in terms of the impact that you see? I mean, very much, again, his message still resonates to us all, but it's amazing how you draw that line direct to these other influencers in society today.
That what we see, and you and I both know Jeffrey Long has talked about this, and maybe you can refer to that a little bit, but I think that what we see is a ripple. So what happens between 1893 and 1899 creates a ripple. Two major centers open, one here and one in Pasadena, that later becomes the Hollywood Center, and then one in San Francisco, and then later in Chicago and other places as well, right? Now, these were all run by brother Swamis from India who came and started running them. But the teachings were really attractive to intellectuals, to women, to people from diverse things. So we have Christopher Isherwood, we have Aldous Huxley, we have the most amazing people, Thomas Hurd. We have in New York, Swami Nikhilananda sets up in the Upper East Side. He has J.D. Salinger, Joseph Campbell. So these are all students of Vedanta. Now, every one of them takes Vedanta and ripples it into the society, right? Then George Lucas reads Hero with 1,000 Voices, and boom, we have the whole thing. So whatever happened in 1893 was the first time a stone was thrown in the water in that way. And you said that in your talk when you talked about it. How do you feel about that?
That's true. Vivekananda did two things. One here in the West, which the film talks about, and also which the film touches upon, what he did back in India. The first thing he did was he built a bridge between the East and the West, across which traveled India's accumulated spiritual heritage of maybe 5,000 years of development of spirituality in India. And from Vivekananda was the pioneer. But after Vivekananda, last 100 plus years, any number of yogis and swamis and philosophers, they have traveled and transferred that knowledge on the bridge that Vivekananda built. So that was one thing. And that had a tremendous effect on the culture also, a silent effect, like he said. It takes a little bit of analysis to discover it, Phil Goldberg in his book, American Veda, has a chapter The Swamis taught the smart guys, and the smart guys taught the rest of us. And he refers to
Is that still your strategy?
Always for him.
Raja actually talks about them. Christopher Isherwood, Aldous Huxley, Gerald Hurd, J.D. Salinger, right here in New York, Joseph Campbell, and then its effects on popular culture. And of course, on the other side of the world, in India, he awakened his motherland to a sense of nationhood and pride, which would then flow into the freedom movement and eventual freedom from the British.
By the way, on that, just a note, I haven't told Raja, but in 1989, I wrote George Lucas because after the cremation scene in Return of the Jedi, I realized the entire Force was based on Hinduism. And I actually got a letter back.
Yes.
Saying it was based on all religions, but thank you for your interest in my films.
In fact, covering his bases.
There you go.
He was covering his bases. He was covering his bases.
Yes, from what I've heard, he was influenced by Joseph Campbell,
Yes.
who was actually a disciple of Swami Nikhilanandaji.
Raja, you're a Jedi.
Lightsaber.
Yes. That's true.
I think that this goes back to something else you and I have talked about, which is that we really underestimate the ripple that occurred. It is estimated that somewhere between 35 and 55 million people do yoga now every day, right? That means that we are the third largest denomination after Catholics and Protestants. That's pretty large, right? That's pretty large, right? And I think that, when everybody in the culture uses namaste and karma and like it's
Chai tea.
Thank you, thank you, Starbucks needs to pay a royalty, but I think that, it's so amusing to see it,
I have a couple of funny yoga stories.
Yeah, please.
I was asked to give a talk on Hinduism in a school in Los Angeles, and when I mentioned yoga, a little boy stood up and said, "Oh, you have yoga in India too?" And the second one is when Professor Jeffrey Long, he came to give a talk in the Vedanta Society. He wanted to speak about the influence of Vedanta on George Lucas and Star Wars. So we titled the talk the Yoga of Yoda. The Yoga of Yoda.
So it's interesting because that brings up an interesting point that we've dealt with at the South Asian Institute, reclaiming what was ours, right? So much of what is out there is not even associated with being originally from South Asia and the subcontinent. So on that note, even before we turn it over to the audience for questions, Raja, one question you and I have discussed often is, this is just the start of what needs to happen, the awakening. One of the reasons that I tell you that we went with this and ran with it is because of Raja, because we said, here's a guy who can take this message. And my hope is there are 20 more people in the audience. Now, one thing we talked about is scores of stories need to be told about the subcontinent, going back 1,000 years. Give me 5 stories you'd like told, and any advice for some budding filmmakers in the audience. And then, Swamiji, I'd like to also turn it back to you and say, anyone out there that's interested in pursuing more education about Vedanta, how do they take that forward?
Just to add to the questions for you, Raja.
Getting complex.
I
have to juggle now.
I'm really curious about your casting. How choosing a Vivekananda is a big,
it was a natural
big task. How did you cast Samrat? I'm curious to know.
What was the first question? No, I'm joking. I've got it. Okay. We love the diaspora story, don't we? We love it. Okay, some say 2.5 million, some say 4.5 million Indian Americans, dominating Silicon Valley, dominating doctors. You all dominate. Look at you. Dominating pharmaceutical, dominating everything. Wall Street, hedge funds. Where are we not? Hotels, 60-something, 7% of hotels in America.
67%.
Patels.
Amazing.
Any Patels in the house, right? So I think that for I hate to say this model minority thing, but we are, pretty much a model minority. But the thing about us is that we do, I always say this, that we cling to, the first generation clings to the culture too much, very conservative. The second generation kind of becomes ashamed of having an Indian identity, so they're worried about it, they're bullied about it, and and then the third generation, today, my daughter, India is cool. It's cool to be Indian now. Curry is cool, no more curry breath jokes. You can take curry to school, it's all right. They have curry at the school.
So Raja, I'm going to bring you back. Give me some names. Give me some characters. Give me some people.
Okay, so my first character I would love to make a film on is Haridas Chaudhary, who changed American psychology by opening the California Institute of Integral Studies he started in 51, and by 71, it had become a university. And he bridged East and West psychology of Sri Aurobindo's teachings and Swami Vivekananda's teachings with Western psychology. And from that we get transpersonal psychology, flow psychology, even integral psychology, all come from that. That's a great story, right? That's number one. Number two is the unaffiliated, right? 30% of young Americans do not align themselves to any religion right now. And they all practice some form of Indian wisdom. So we got to celebrate that. How are we going to do that? Third is, I think that this is part of this story also, and then we can talk about that, is that Indian wisdom, more so than in India, empowered women here. So the second one I proposed to PBS is called American Yogini, which is the making of, from pre-suffragette through feminism, how yoga and Indian spirituality really changed.
Early funders can meet stage
I have a hat outside.
Swami Sarvapriyananda, I want to come back to you in terms of if someone wants more Vedantic education, and then we'd like to open it up to the audience for some questions.
But since this is about Vivekananda, I can do no better than suggest Vivekananda's works. So the famous four yogas, the book Karma Yoga and the book Raja Yoga were actually published from New York, from the New York Vedanta Society. J.D. Salinger, he writes that our American youth would do well to carry these two little classics around in their pockets, Karma Yoga and Raja Yoga. He writes about that, yes. So Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. The four yogas, they're separate books, also available in a single volume. There's a wonderful modern introduction to Vedanta in all its phases. And the beauty of Vivekananda is, it's an inspiring introduction. It's informative. It's intellectually stimulating, but it's also inspiring. It really shakes you up and makes you want to incorporate all of that in your life.
Wonderful. And I'd also add, by the way, that Swamiji's being somewhat modest in that I've seen a number of your lectures on YouTube, and they're amazing in terms of the same.
He's the YouTube Swami. I mean, sorry, I think Swami Medananda is a distant second. You're number one right now. But I think that's what Swamiji's message was, more so here than in India, was that you have to awaken your inner guru. You have to awaken your inner teacher to be a light for yourself in the world, right? And I think this was very important. He would not have advocated going and being obedient to a guru and being, join a religion. But he would have said that if you are a part of religion, then yoga and Vedanta will make you a better Christian or a better Muslim or a better Jew. But it doesn't take it away from you. And that was his pluralism message that was very strong.
To bring it to a quote that stuck with me, and I think you say this in the film as well, Swamiji, each soul is potentially divine, and the goal is to manifest that divinity. So with that...
And see it in others. So you're right, let's see it in others.
No, that's perfect. I mean, it's such a simple definition of religion, and I think lots of kids in India used to memorize it, but it's such a simple, direct, and powerful definition of what spirituality is, the core of religion. That each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity which is already within us. And then how you do it, you can do it through meditation, you can do it through devotion, you can do it through philosophy, he says the path of knowledge, through service, by one or more or all of this, and be free. And that, he says, is the whole of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details. They're tremendous, simple, powerful, and the more you go into it, it covers everything. It's so deep.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. And with the house lights up, we'd like to invite you to awake or rise, ask your questions.
So Rachel is going to come recognize you. The only thing we ask so we can get as many questions as possible, please state your name and say your name and then the question itself. And we'll have our experts weigh in.
Okay. I guess am I audible?
Yes,
All right,
perfect.
so my name is...
Oh, right here.
Oh.
You really?
I can't see a thing.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful documentary. It's amazing to see because I'm Bengali. Mother's side is Datta, and they boast that they're related to the same
We are
family.
many.
I know. And I'm also an architect who got into filmmaking, so it's very inspiring to see what you've done. My name is Maddie here because they completely massacre my Bengali name, Madhurina, so it's Maddie Samadar Johnson.
Chi.
I know, right? No, you can see, right? Anyway, let me just get to the question. So, oh God, I have too many questions, so I'll just stick to one. My mother had studied philosophy and she practiced yoga, and she also was a mathematician inspired by Vivekananda. So just like you in a Bengali family, all the three would see. Mine is more technical, like how long did filming take? What were the challenges you faced? And we were really hoping that you get some Netflix series started with some of the topics he mentioned or you're thinking of. So it's more about how long did this whole process take to come up with the documentary? And
Hey, very briefly, take them through idea, execution. Right? Logistical execution.
So we have a term in filmmaking called pre-production, right? Right? Pre-production means everything from raising money to writing scripts to research, all that stuff, right? So it took 9 years of pre-production to make this film. 9 years of pre-production. Because I couldn't raise the money.
That's longer than it took Vivekananda to get here.
I had hair.
You had hair at the start.
I had hair when I started. But the thing was that once we were able to get the momentum ready and we had distribution, we raised some money, we had the script idea, we knew who we wanted to talk to, we had arranged everything, then it was a year. We did it all in a year. Filming, editing, the whole thing, you know. And we had great guests like Swami Sarvapriyananda, we had Samrat Chakravarti, who is also Bengali, by the way. And Samrat is, you know, my challenge to Samrat was that can you channel these words so that anybody watching it could be really moved and inspired? That was the challenge. And you can't tell, but I'm directing him like 4 feet away from him while he's making these speeches, right? I'm right next to him, right? Directing him. Okay, now look up, now do this. And he's doing it, you know, amazing. And I think that from a production point of view, the love and passion in a film is always in the pre-production. And then you have the belief to see it through, right? Then once you've seen it through, you have to get it out there. So now the estimates are that 200,000-300,000 people have seen it on PBS already, right? So that's great.
And that's again, just to put it in perspective, in what time frame? Because that's
1 month.
That's the impressive
1
part.
month. 1 month.
200,000 in 1 month.
And it's streaming, it's on PBS, it's on the World Channel. So your local PBS will show it this summer at some point, you know. So it's all great. It's all great.
We have some runners here. Ed, can we get the house lights up all the way, please?
Hi, my name is Kirti Vaswani, up here.
Where am I looking?
To the
Oh, wait.
There you go.
Kirti Vaswani, thank you. This was very interesting. We are a mental wellness company, and we have launched an app called the Wisdom Tree.
Oh, we're
which
pitching.
has the Wisdom Tree, which has AI monks you can chat with, and they give you guidance.
That's worrying. That's worrying. Swami, this one's for you. This one's for you. This one's for you.
Yes, this is for Swamiji, because I graduated from Harvard Divinity School, and I'm a follower of Vedanta myself. But in the true spirit of pluralism and universality, which Swami Vivekananda espouses in this film, I wanted to see, because what a lot of users are telling us, they are having personal questions, very deep personal questions with the AI monks, and one of the most popular ones is the Hindu Swami, do you see, what is your role, Swami? What do you think is the role of artificial intelligence in the future of religion? Can it improve?
Your favorite
Does it have the
subject.
I
potential?
never thought that your job was going to be at risk.
And with all due humility, it is to increase access 24/7 in the middle of the night when you have a worrying
True.
thought. Yeah. Thank you.
Actually, I got a demonstration of that. There was this team in UT Austin, a computer science department, postgraduate team, which made a Sarva Priyananda AI. And they demonstrated it to me and said, you can ask any question. And when I asked Vedanta questions to that AI, it gave beautiful answers and also pointed out to me, they had fed it 1,000 hours of my talks. So it pointed out to me where exactly I had said that. And then it has a wider access to the whole of the net. So it supplements it with lots of other sources, and it gives better answers than I could ever do. And it's consistent.
He may need a hotel job, Raja.
I know. So, yes, something like AI will open up 24-hour access to this information. And it'll be intelligent retrieval, and people can ask targeted questions and get relevant answers, informed answers. So that's great. I'm all for it. Where does that leave me? With lots of extra time, I hope. But you know, especially for something like this, for example, Vedanta. There is something that's transmitted from a live teacher, may not be so easy over YouTube, but in person, you know, and it's not just Vedanta. It could be something very subtle like philosophy, or even almost just about any subject at the cutting edge. It's something about a live person, maybe the non-verbal cues which you get. I remember this professor at Harvard. He teaches Wittgenstein. He's the senior most professor there, and he is hardly on his the web page which they use for grades and assignments. He always says to the class, come to class, sit here, listen to me, look at me, then you'll get it. So that's, I think, one corner, one niche, which I hope still to occupy for a while.
Right.
But yes, it's useful.
You know, I think it was Sri Ramakrishna who said this, maybe correct me, but that of every 100 people that even think about this, one may come to seek a little bit more. Of them, of 100 of those, maybe one will pursue it even further. And if one of them begins to pursue it deeper and goes to classes and does meditation, then we are blessed, because that one person is coming, right? So I think that mental wellness apart, because we've looked at this also, and this is the biggest issue, is that you can use these little hacks and wisdoms for mental wellness, but if you want to pursue the mystical life, the spiritual life, then that's a journey. No AI can have an app tool. Yeah, I love it. I have this. I'm sorry, I'm bifurcating, but I was reading the Bhagavad Gita by Sri Aurobindo. Is now an app, right? And not only that, it does comparative things of different things you can read on each verse and how to explain it and all. And I was reading it and I loved it, you know. And it tells you how to say it. You know.
That's a movie I'd like to see, by the way.
Yeah.
Sri Aurobindo.
That's the one.
Complex
That's what this
personality.
Haridas Chaudhary is going to be about.
Complex
We're calling it the
personality.
gate. The gate. You said the bridge, and he made the gate. He made the gate.
So, Raja, my name is Namita Luthra. I'm here.
Where am I looking?
I'm
Okay.
here. I'm here.
Hello.
So I'd love to chat with you about American suffragists later.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is a big area of research for me right now.
Yeah, so my question for you all is, can women ascend to the level of Swami? And
They already do.
They do. They already
They're
do.
called pravrajikas.
Okay, I would love to know
Yeah,
more
yeah.
about that. Okay, great.
In fact, the first female Swami was Marie Louise here in America. First one. With Swami Vivekananda initiated her, right?
Swami Abhayananda.
Abhayananda.
Yes. Hello.
Hari Om, Jai Guru, and thank you to all of you all, Mukesh, Raja, Swamiji, Dia, I have to name them, Rachel and Arun. And my question is, first of all, and Samrat buddy, you did a great job. You really channeled Swamiji. I could feel it.
Take another bow.
Thank you, Samrat. So my question is, we were talking about the divine within, and we have to, feel the divine and feel all the powers. We do need to meditate, read, practice, follow all the rules or whatever it is. But Swamiji, it's not so easy. It's really a tough one when you really get down on doing it or for doing it. And you're always struggling every day, and I just thought about it to share this with you, because when I came here, I did my meditation this morning, I was feeling good, whatever. I came here and I met a few people, and there was instant judgment in my head for them. And I was questioning while I was watching the movie when Swamiji said that, that you have to see the God within everybody else. And then my question was, what happened to me? I judged these 2-3 people. I didn't tell them nothing, but the judgment was there.
By the way, we saw who you talked to, huh? We saw
Sorry?
who you talked to.
I know, it was you also, Raja. I spoke to you, I spoke to Mukesh. But anyway, Swamiji, it's not easy. My only point to say here, it's not easy. What is the way to go deeper into it?
So here are 3 answers to your questions very quickly and 1 observation. 3 answers are that once you have come into this path, once you have tasted it, there's nothing better. This is everybody
Amen.
Who's on the spiritual path, whichever religion you are, you're a spiritual seeker, this is the most valuable thing in our lives. There's nothing better, nothing higher than that. That's 1. Second, it's not easy, but success is guaranteed on this path. Success is guaranteed. Nobody's a loser on this path. And third, it's not all or nothing. As we go on this path, day to day we get strength and peace and meaning in life. And so this path it's the best thing in the world. It's the highest thing that every civilization in every age has come up with. Spirituality, I mean. So these are the 3 points I wanted to say in response to your question about it being difficult. And the observation is this. Notice, I was listening very carefully to what you said. You are now worried about the mind, right? Why am I judgmental? I meditated. Why am I judgmental about other people? I shouldn't have been. That's already progress. Usually we are worried about, why did that person say this? Why did that person do that? From there, I am now worried about not so much why that person said this or did that, but why is my mind not being serene? Why is my mind judgmental? That movement back from the judging other people to judging my own mind and reactions, that's already spiritual progress. That's great, actually. Yeah.
Hari Om Swamiji and everyone on the panel.
Hello.
My name is Neil. I'm a teacher. I teach history, comparative religion, and Gujarati at a school here in New York.
Combination.
And my question is really about young people. What would Swamiji's vision be for sharing Vedanta with young people, thinking both of people who might have some Indian or Hindu heritage and be coming at it from that background, as well as people without that background? What is the role of Vedanta in society that way?
So before we go there, what is the age you teach currently?
I personally teach high school.
High school.
Certainly. I mean, I remember, and many of us will recall this, we as spiritual seekers, many of us started young. I started young. I started at high school. So there will be kids who will be very interested and they will take it up. Vivekananda's answer to this was very direct. He said, teach it to children for they can understand. But remember, when you teach it to children, we don't have to preach. It's not transmitting a doctrine or a religion. Rather, here I will quote Dr. Radhakrishnan, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. He said, religion can be taught in schools and colleges, but it should be the highest, most liberal and universal and spiritual values of all religions. which can be transmitted to children. And Vivekananda was very clear. He says even young children can understand it. He in fact says they can understand it, probably emphasizing in many ways they are less complicated than us, more direct than us. And these ideas are subtle but very simple, and they can be caught on by children. It's a great idea to transmit this to children.
You know what I thought was amazing, though, is in one of Swami Vivekananda's speeches, he talks about not pulling kids from the football field, not pulling kids from the sports fields to mandatory teach them, but teach them to be the best at what they do in sports, and they will naturally find their way back to Vedanta, which I thought was an amazing point.
He emphasized the importance of physical health. He emphasized the importance of being part of a like an organization. He said the importance of both obedience and freedom at the same time.
Yeah, also, I mean, there's many ways to manifest the divinity in one's soul. Work, worship, psychic control. I think he talks about, and I really appreciated that as a young person, where you're often told there's only one way to do something, one job you can do, and having that diversity of ways to reach fulfillment was personally meaningful.
I think that what we found, we showed this at Princeton, and different young people also saw it, is that
On them.
I know, but I think that what Vivekananda Swami gave was a spectrum. So, I mean, one of the things he did say when he went back to India, and it's been misquoted by many people, is that he would rather that, he talked about vigor, that we have to be strong. And he said that, I would rather you played football than learn the Bhagavad Gita, right? That was his famous quote he gave, right? And what he meant there was that, or feed someone rather than teach them Vedanta, right? Now, what does that mean? That means that you cannot have a spiritual life unless you have a foundation of strength, of technique, and one of the things about yoga is technique, right? One of the biggest things in any practice, in Ramakrishna process as well, is japa, meditation, just repeating a sound, right? Teaching children love that. They just love to repeat. They love to do things, yoga. They love to do it. So I think there are many ways to bring it as a fun way of working without calling it religion, right? It's about life, and living fully.
Rachel, do we have time for one more? All right.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you for this, Samrat. Thank you. Great job. That's my friend.
You brought your posse.
Yeah,
you brought your posse with you.
My name is Rohan. I went to Ramakrishna Mission Nandapur, and I actually stayed in Abhidananda Bhavan, so I studied under the Ramakrishna Mission teachings and Vivekananda. And the first thing I want to say about AI is that if access to information would have made us smarter, the internet would have brought about a golden age of wisdom, but it did the opposite. So we have to be very careful of this, and we also have to be careful of the people who are preaching what AI can do for us. My question is around that. My question is around attention, and it is for you, Swamiji. I think we talk a lot about freedom of speech, and that has taken over the conversation, but I think the fight that we are fighting for the young generation is the freedom of attention. And how do we claim back attention from these devices and bring people back, bring generally the younger people back to pay attention to wisdom rather than what 5 companies are telling them to pay attention to?
It's a really, really important question. I think the most precious thing that we have is our attention. What we are thinking about and how much attention we are paying to it. I think it was Milton who said, the mind in its own place can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. And another important, some well-known psychologist, maybe Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he says the quality of our life depends on what we attend to and how much we attend to that. And right now, as you said, there is a fight going on at a very subtle level. The fight, what's called the attention economy. So Silicon Valley is out to grab our attention because it's directly connected to, I think, advertising money or something like that. So, I mean, that's a very, very.
It's all about the likes.
That's a very New York thing also. Yes, it's out there and it's almost unstoppable. But we have to protect ourselves and children. Cal Newport in his book Deep Work, He says the value of attention is even more now because we already have a lot of scattered attention. So those who can pay attention and can focus on their work, they will produce what he calls deep work, and that will be maximally valued in this new economy. So all the way back, Swami Vivekananda, you can't call him a prophet of attention, because he said the difference between an ordinary person and a great person lies in the degree of concentration. He gave tremendous importance to the power of concentration of mind. He said, if I were to do my education all over again, he said, I wouldn't read all these books. I would develop my power of attention, the power of concentrating on something, and then pulling out attachment and detachment. That's what he said. The ability to attach something and then pull out from that and again focus tremendously on another thing. I was just saying that, is that all the difference between one person and another, just the degree of attention? Then I read a piece about, what was his name? Von Neumann, the great physicist. And it was an autobiographical piece. And it said von Neumann was probably as great as Einstein in the 20th century physics. He had this tremendous conviction he could crack any problem by the sheer power of his concentration. There's another person who agrees. Anybody who's achieved anything in any field, filmmaking included, surgery included, you can say that this is all a matter of focus and sustained focus. And if you interfere with that, you're taking away the greatest superpower that our children have, the power of attention. Yeah.
But what a great final question. We couldn't script it better in the sense of the fact that you're all here tonight in person on a Monday night. The fact that we sold out, and I think we could have sold out an auditorium twice the size. The fact that people are coming to watch. I mean, I think it's please come to more of our functions. We've got more planned that you might even hear about tonight.